Hitler saw this offer as placing him in a position of playing second fiddle in the government. 88. In his position of Reichstag president, Göring asked that decisive measures be taken by the government over the spate of murders of Nazi Party members. On the 9th of August, amendments were made to the Reichsstrafgesetzbuch statute on acts of political violence, increasing the penalty to lifetime imprisonment, 20 years hard labor, or death. Special courts were announced to try such offenses. When in power less than half a year later, Hitler would use this legislation against his opponents with devastating effect. The law was applied almost immediately but did not bring the perpetrators behind the recent massacres to trial as expected. Instead, 5 some men who were alleged to have murdered a KPD member in Potempa, Upper Silesia, were tried. Hitler appeared at the trial as a defense witness, but on the 22nd of August the 5 were convicted and sentenced to death. On appeal, this sentence was commuted to life imprisonment in early September. They served just over 4 months before Hitler freed all imprisoned Nazis in a 1933 amnesty. The Nazi Party lost 35 seats in the November 1932 election, but remained the Reichstag's largest party, with 196 seats, 33.1%. The Social Democrats, SPD, won 121 seats, 20.4%, and the Communists, KPD, won 116.9%. The Communist International described all moderate left-wing parties as social fascists and urged the Communists to devote their energies to the destruction of the moderate left. As a result, the KPD, following orders from Moscow, rejected overtures from the Social Democrats to form a political alliance against the NSDAP. 89-90 Inauguration of Hitler as Chancellor on the 30th of January 1933, Reich President Paul von Hindenburg appoints Adolf Hitler as Reichskanzler. The new Reichskanzler Hitler addresses the German nation in a call of the Reichsregierung, broadcast over all German transmitters on 1 February the same year. Date 30 January 1933 Location Berlin, Weimar Republic. Participants Paul von Hindenburg, Adolf Hitler. Hitler cabinet. Outcome: Hitler became the Reichskanzler of the German Reich. After Chancellor Papen left office, he secretly told Hitler that he still held considerable sway with President Hindenburg and that would make Hitler Chancellor as long as he, Papen, could be Vice-Chancellor. Another notable event was the publication of Industrieliniengabe, a letter signed by 22 important representatives of industry, finance and agriculture, asking Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as Chancellor. Hindenburg reluctantly agreed to appoint Hitler as Chancellor after the parliamentary elections of July and November 1932 had not resulted in the formation of a majority government despite the fact that Hitler had been Hindenburg's opponent in the presidential election only 9 months earlier. Hitler headed a short-lived coalition government formed by the NSDAP and the German National People's Party, DNVP. On the 30th of January 1933, the new cabinet was sworn in during a brief ceremony in Hindenburg's office. The NSDAP gained 3 posts. Hitler was named Chancellor, Wilhelm Frick Minister of Interior, and Hermann Göring, Minister without portfolio, and Minister of the Interior for Prussia. 91-92, the Sandess led torchlit parades throughout Berlin. It is this event that would become termed Hitler's Machtergreifung, seizure of power. The term was originally used by some Nazis to suggest our evolutionary process. 93, though Hitler, and others, used the word Machtübernahme, takeover of power, reflecting that transfer of power took place within the existing constitutional framework. 93, and suggesting that the process was legal. 94-95. Papen was to serve as vice-chancellor in a majority conservative cabinet, still falsely believing that he could tame Hitler. 96. Initially, Papen did speak out against some Nazi excesses. However, after narrowly escaping death in the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, he no longer dared criticize the regime and was sent off to Vienna as German ambassador. 97. Both within Germany and abroad, there were initially few fears that Hitler could use his position to establish his later dictatorial single-party regime. Rather, the conservatives that helped to make him chancellor were convinced that they could control Hitler and tame the Nazi Party while setting to relevant impulses in the government themselves. Foreign ambassadors played down worries by emphasizing that Hitler was mediocre if not a bad copy of Mussolini. Even SPD politician Kurt Schumacher trivialized Hitler as a decoration stuck piece of scenery /decoration of the new government. German newspapers wrote that, without doubt, the Hitler-led government would try to fight its political enemies, the left-wing parties, but that it would be impossible to establish a dictatorship in Germany because there was a barrier over which violence cannot proceed and because of the German nation being proud of the freedom of speech and thought. Benno Riefenberg of the Frankfurter Zeitung wrote sad smiley 98. It is a hopeless misjudgment to think that one could force a dictatorial regime upon the German nation. The diversity of the German people calls for democracy. Benno Riefenberg, even within the Jewish German community, in spite of Hitler not hiding his ardent antisemitism, the worries appear to have been limited. In a declaration of the 30th of January, the steering committee of the Central Jewish German Organization, Zentralverein Deutscher Staatsbürger Judischen Glaubens, wrote that as a matter of course the Jewish community faces the new government with the largest mistrust, but at the same they were convinced that nobody would dare to touch their constitutional rights. The Jewish German newspaper Jüdische Rundschau wrote on 31 Jan sad smiley 99, that also within the German nation still the forces are active that would turn against a barbarian anti-Jewish policy. Jüdische Rundschau, the 31st of January 1933. However, a growing number of keen observers, like Sir Horace Rumbold, British ambassador in Berlin, began to revise their opinions. On the 22nd of February 1933, he wrote, Hitler may be no statesman, but he is an uncommonly clever and audacious demagogue and fully alive to every popular instinct, and he informed the Foreign Office that he had no doubt that the Nazis had come to stay. 100. On receiving the dispatch, Robert van Zittart, Permanent Under-Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, concluded that if Hitler eventually gained the upper hand, then another European war was within measurable distance. 101, with Germans who opposed Nazism failing to unite against it, Hitler soon moved to consolidate absolute power at the risk of appearing to talk nonsense. I tell you that the National Socialist movement will go on for 1,000 years. Don't forget how people laughed at me 15 years ago when I declared it one day I would govern Germany. They laugh now, just as foolishly, when I declare that I shall remain in power. Adolf Hitler to a British correspondent in Berlin, June 1934, 102, Chancellor to Dictator. Adolf Hitler addressing the Reichstag on 23 March 1933. Seeking assent to the Enabling Act, Hitler offered the possibility of friendly cooperation, promising not to threaten the Reichstag, the President, the states or the churches if granted emergency powers. Chart. Political system in Germany. After 2 years of dictatorship following the Reichstag fire, the Nazis began to suspend civil liberties and eliminate political opposition. The communists were excluded from the Reichstag. At the March 1933 elections, again no single party secured a majority. Hitler required the vote of the Centre Party and conservatives in the Reichstag to obtain the powers he desired. He called on Reichstag members to vote for the Enabling Act on 23 March 1933. Hitler was granted plenary powers temporarily by the passage of the Act. 103. The law gave him the freedom to act without parliamentary consent and even without constitutional limitations. 104. Employing his characteristic mix of negotiation and intimidation, Hitler offered the possibility of friendly cooperation, promising not to threaten the Reichstag, the president, the states or the churches if granted the emergency powers. With Nazi paramilitary encircling the building, he said, "It is for you, gentlemen of the Reichstag, to decide between war and peace." 103. The Centre Party, having obtained promises of non-interference in religion, joined with conservatives in voting for the act. Only the Social Democrats voted against. 105. The act allowed Hitler and his cabinet to rule by emergency decree for 4 years, though Hindenburg remained president. 106. Hitler immediately set about abolishing the powers of the states and the existence of non-Nazi political parties and organizations. Non-Nazi parties were formally outlawed on the 14th of July 1933, and the Reichstag abdicated its democratic responsibilities. 107. Hindenburg remained commander-in-chief of the military and retained the power to negotiate foreign treaties. The act did not infringe upon the powers of the president, and Hitler would not fully achieve full dictatorial power until after the death of Hindenburg in August 1934. 108. Journalists and diplomats wondered whether Hitler could appoint himself president, who might succeed him as chancellor, and what the army would do. They did not know that the army supported Hitler after the Night of the Long Knives, or expect that he would combine the two positions of president and chancellor into one office with the law concerning the head of state of the German Reich. Only Hitler, as head of state, could dismiss Hitler as head of the government. All soldiers took the Hitler oath on the day of Hindenburg's death, swearing unconditional obedience to Hitler personally, not to the office or nation. 109. A large majority approved of combining the two roles in the person of Hitler through the 1934 German referendum. 110. See also: Day of Potsdam, early timeline of Nazism, Blitzschaltung, Poison Kitchen, political views of Adolf Hitler, Weimar paramilitary groups, Weimar political parties. References. Informational notes.